is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan. Here on the Morgan Man Sports Podcast, we talk Atlanta Falcons news, pre-game predictions, and all other news surrounding the Atlanta Falcons.
Touchdown, Atlanta!
Also on the podcast, we talk Call of Duty League, esports, covering Roster Mania, major predictions, COD champs, player trades, and much more to get you ready for every single CDL weekend.
Scuff goes through, and Scuff snaps, wins the one-on-one in optic with the reverse sweep.
If that sounds good with you, put on your Falcons jersey, grab your gaming headset, and let's get this show started. What is going on, you guys? I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan, and you are listening to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Here on today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons wide receivers at this year's training camp of who needs to step up at the 4th overall wide receiver spot, Drake London's expectations going into year 4, and so much more. And also, ladies and gentlemen, we are announcing the winner from this past Sunday's Belly Up Super Show Call of Duty League edition of who's going to win a copy of this year's Call of Duty Black Ops 7. So without any further delay, let's go to get straight into today's action. 4 weeks remain until the Atlanta Falcons report back to the facility for their 2025 training camp. So this gives me an opportunity to look down the scope at certain skill positions. And today we are talking about the wide receiver position for the Atlanta Falcons. So to start off things right here, ladies and gentlemen, the position coaches. Zach Robinson is our offensive coordinator. TJ Yates is the passing game coordinator. And Ike Hillard, is the wide receivers coach for this year's Atlanta Falcons wide receivers. Returning starters, Drake London with 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns in 2024. Darnell Mooney, just 8 yards shy of 1,000, which is at 992 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2024. And Ray McLeod III with 686 yards, 1 touchdown in 2024. Notable newcomers, Nick Nash signed in April as an undrafted free agent, and Jamal Andrew signed in March, most likely a returner. The rest of the roster, Casey Washington, Cordero Hodge, Quincy Skinner, Chris Blair, David Seals, McCoy Polk, if I'm pronouncing it right, Jesse Matthews, Dylan Drummond Matthews are all on the Atlanta Falcons main wide receiver roster. And for offseason departures, Rondell Moore, which signed with the Minnesota Vikings back this March. So very talented players right here, ladies and gentlemen. But hey, this is why we got the preseason. We got training camp, preseason games coming up, and some of these players might not be on this roster. So it's a good opportunity to talk about them right now while we have the presence of this offseason, training camp, and of course coming up later in like a month or so, which will be the preseason games. So three key questions for the Falcons wide receivers this year. Number one is what to expect out of Drake London in the 4th year. London should be riding a nice high into 2025. He surpassed 1,000 yards receiving for the first time in his career last season, totaling 1,271 yards on 100 receptions, with a personal high 9 touchdowns. He also had his 5th year option picked up in April, which means he will remain an Atlanta Falcon through at least the 2026 season. London has dealt with a lack of consistency at the quarterback position since he was drafted at 2022, but this year may hold the most promising as Michael Penix Jr. carries over the starting responsibility from the end of last year. London averaged 82.5 yards per game in Penix's final 3 starts of 2024, which was a jump from his average of 65.5 yards per game when Kirk Cousins, ran into the offense. London also had his first multi-score game ever in the Falcons season finale, breaking into the end zone of 20 and 21-yard passing from Michael Penix. So definitely nice to see this explosiveness in the last 3 games for Michael Penix right here and for Drake London. So hopefully this is a duo that would excite you like it would the Matt Ryan and Julio Jones era. Who knows? Second question going into training camp is, can Darnell Mooney continue to flourish in Atlanta? Mooney, which was reintroduced himself into the league in 2024, registering 64 receptions of 992 yards and 5 touchdowns. Arguably, the only reason Mooney did not break 1,000 yards receiving was because his shoulder injury sidelined him in the Falcons' season finale. He had kept his average 62 yards per game. He would only have easily cracked that threshold alongside London. Mooney came to Atlanta last offseason from the Chicago Bears, who drafted him in 2020 with a 5th round selection. He had a really strong second season there, totaling 1,055 yards receiving, but then stayed within the 400-yard range the next 2 years as his rookie contract expired. His second contract now with the Falcons could bring a second wave of his still rather young career. Definitely, yes, whenever you think Atlanta Falcons, especially at the wide receiver position, 1 or 2 players, and that is Darnell or Drake London. When you had Darnell Mooney in the rotation, he was more that quick escape kind of guy that if you was going to go for the long shots, you're throwing to Darnell, okay? It's just no questions asked. Not saying that Drake London couldn't catch the deep ball, but Darnell had that quick explosiveness and was just down the field just a little bit quicker. So definitely, this is why you had a wide receiver 2 just right behind Drake London. Drake London is built for more of that aggressive style like Julio Jones was back just a couple years ago, where he basically needs to jump for the ball and slam down defenders as much as he can and score also on top of that. So quick explosiveness is Darnell Mooney's expertise, while Drake London's it's just more of that just aggressive style of play, but also with a little bit of explosiveness. So it's a little mixture right there. And finally, number 3 going into training camp, who will emerge as the wide receiver 4? So in this offense right here for Zach Robinson, definitely loves running the ball, but he sure as heck loves throwing the ball. And when there's a formation where all 4 wide receivers are in the rotation, that 4th guy has definitely got to keep his heels up, because that ball is going to be thrown no matter what. And if that ball is thrown to you, you better be ready. And definitely at that number 4 spot for the wide receiver position, it could be anybody on this list right here. So London and Mooney are locks as starters. So too is McLeod, after carved out a rather specific role on the offense last season, is built a bit differently from his counterparts as is operating in tighter spaces from the slot. In 2024, McLeod had the best catch rate, 71.3% compared to London's 63.3% and Mooney's 60.4%. But the shortest yards per reception average, which is 11.1 yards compared to London's 12.7 and Mooney's 15.5. Still, his 342 yards after the catch highlighted his ability to turn those short yard situations into bigger gains. So if 3 spots are filled, that begs the question of who can emerge beyond those 3. Washington is entering his 2nd season and could really build upon his early relationship with Penix. Cordell Hodge is a veteran who made his name in the special teams, but had a big flash of offensive success in 2024. Andrew is another special team standout whose size and speed could make for a sneaky option in the passing game. Nash is a potential dark horse after going undrafted despite leading the FBS in almost every receiving category. The Falcons are not without a variety of options at the wide receiver position this year, ladies and gentlemen. And me personally, I would love for all these guys to make the list. And more than likely they will. But I'm actually rooting for Kadero Hodge, the veteran, to really step up in this role and become that wide receiver 4. And become that staple point of when you do bring up the 4 wide receiver formation, that he can step up in that big role and catch the football and potentially gain the first down or score. So it's really going to be up to him going into training camp and this, of course, preseason games that are coming up in August. So it's a lot to think about, ladies and gentlemen. We're really in the dog days right now when it comes to the NFL offseason. But hey, just hold in tight. We got a month and a week left until football starts. You know, because if you really follow the NFL, preseason pretty much starts football season across America. Like, no doubtedly. Like, so you're getting really not September. You're getting August from February of football. And that's really spectacular. And I really love that right there. You know, everybody says, well, the preseason don't count. No, duh. Like, I mean, it don't count, but it sort of does count. It counts of who's going to make that roster. That 52-man roster at the end of the preseason. When we have that gap in between, you know, the last preseason game and the regular season game. So what, those 2 weeks right there? It does count, but hey, you're still getting football to watch on a Thursday or a Friday night. Potentially even Saturday or Sunday. But no doubtly, football is back in August. So guys, now since we got that out of the way, we're going to be tuning right back in with the winner of this year's Call of Duty Black Ops 7 copy coming from the Belly Up Sports YouTube page from this past live stream this Sunday. So I, Cole Morgan, will be right back. Now, since we are back, ladies and gentlemen, before I announce the winner of the copy of Call of Duty Black Ops 7, I do want to quickly mention here that I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to my very first ever Super Show here on the Belly Up Sports Network. It was truly an honor to actually be live streaming an entire show by myself. I know it was only 38 minutes, but still, that is something that I was never used to. And, you know, calling stuff like just right on the fly. Like, I mean, that was new to me. And it seemed like everybody at the network really enjoyed it. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm just definitely am very thankful that they gave me the opportunity to do this. We definitely had great viewership. I think now we're at 50 views almost on the Belly Up Sports YouTube page. And on Twitter, I believe we broke over 8,000 viewers, which is honestly insane, if you ask me. And, you know, it's something new for the network, and I'm beyond stoked for the future of Super Shows now for Call of Duty League editions. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of Call of Duty Black Ops 7 and will receive that copy when the game does announce, or will be released later in the year here, that winner is Hector Flores from the Insert FC podcast. So congratulations, Hector. You are the winner of Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Hope you definitely enjoy it, and make sure to tune in a little bit to the Call of Duty League this weekend right here, and of course in the future events. Definitely, I feel like you will enjoy it. Everybody at the network here at Belly Up and even outside of the network, tune in to Call of Duty League stuff. It is fantastic. Esports is definitely a growing industry, and sooner or later it will be competing with NFL numbers. hopefully. So, with that being said, again, congratulations Hector Flores for winning the copy of Call of Duty Black Ops 7, which will be releasing later in the year. But guys, I sure hope you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure to like button wherever you are listening from: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on the Belly Up Sports YouTube page. Make sure you are subscribing for more sports content each and every single day from not just me, but each and every one of the Belly Up Sports content creators around. But until then, I, Stacy Cole Morgan, catch you all later. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.